Hi, party people. Very much felt like a Florida post work, so here we are sat. And if you would give me time to indulge you in my favorite books thus far in our good year of 2026, I'd be very grateful. So here we go. Because I'm a yapper, so I gotta get started. The first is the Jasad Heir duology. There's something about our duology that I'm always drawn to. I think the ability to put a whole story, character arcs, found family, just plot, the whole thing in 2 books is an art that is talked about, but I don't think it's talked about enough. I think usually most duologies I encounter are top tier writing, just like the author's foresight to be able to do the thing is something that, like, while I'm obsessed with like 7-book series and all those types of things because they keep you so drawn in and like everything is like you just grow so a part of the characters in the story, there's something about being able to do all of that in 2 books that I just find so artful. Like the craft of that, I'm like always blown away. Leah Bardot is someone who always comes to mind with a duology. It seems like the Six of Crows duology is very widely talked about. It's one of my favorite books of all, favorite series of all time. But this one, this girl, I'm first and foremost always looking for how I connect with the female main character, how I feel about her. I always want to root for her. Like that is my number one when reading romantasy usually is like baseline. I want to root for the female main character. I just, you know, that's like what I go into romantasy for, is like kind of a little bit of escapism and like listening to the girly pops go about it and figure out its situations and hopefully fall in love and kiss a little, you know, like that's what I look for in a romantasy. So this accomplishes that like so totally. It's so totally. Yep, good English there. Yeah, our girl is just, she's complex. She says things that I don't expect. She thinks things out. She's competent, but she's also strong in kind of like not always a physical way that I find so beautiful and so well done. And I cannot wait to see where this author grows and goes because I'm going to follow her for forever. So yes, my second favorite book of the year. I'm gonna like, can I put them on my mini trampoline? This feels very vulnerable, I will say. Okay, my second favorite book of the year is Their Morals and Ours, Marxist versus Liberal Views on Morality by Leon Trotsky. This book person was a gift for Christmas for my friend, which I'm so grateful for. Like, to be seen is to be loved. To be loved is to be seen is the correct thing. There's something about morality that I'm very interested in right now. I think we're going through a phase in our culture where moral superiority has become like the basis of a lot of things, specifically politically, specifically culturally, specifically socially, like the whole thing. So I'm very interested in this topic of morality. I grew up very Catholic, so like good versus evil, good, bad, it's very much been a part of my dialogue that I've received since I was a youngin. So morality, I think, is kind of not a straightforward concept as much as like our brains might portray it that way, or like how we receive it when other people talk about morality. Like good versus evil, I think is laid out plainly in many stories we grew up with. Harry Potter, Star Wars, like good versus evil. I think as we grow older, and like, this is me going to my Star Wars lore, but like Anakin and all those things get like dissected a little bit more and talked about and defended. Those lines do very much blur, but morality is it's just a big topic I've been thinking about recently. I can't think of the podcast name right now, but the girlies who do the pop culture podcast talk a lot about One Direction. Big fan. My girls. One comment recently, it was made in like kind of a flippant way. It wasn't like about really a lot of anything like super deep and serious, but one of them made a comment that was like, we're very much engaging in Puritan culture where we're like this moral superiority where we're like judging and have all these restrictions on what people can engage in, and just like the judgment and the regulations, that unsaid regulations that we critique each other with is, especially in the online space, I just am finding very interesting. And I thought the Puritan comparison was so beautiful. Like, I have not stopped thinking about it, even though I don't know if that was like her main intention when she said it, but it has changed my outlook this summer. Whatever.
Gen Z, we be on our Puritan shit.
No one wants to be the cornucopia of surveillance more than the police state of
the Gen Z.
The policing of each other, guys.
Girl, and I'm like, the policing of self, because it's like, again, the subconscious, like, oh, look how it comes back around, and now I'm over here like, and like, when I was 13, like, I accidentally like called this bitch like stupid, and like, I should fucking die. Like, the drama.
Yeah.
Like, girl, everyone, including yourself, like, loves you for all of the ways that you've kind of like grown from your mistakes.
Yeah, it's the self-forgiveness of it all. And
right.
I think also too, it's like letting go of the policing.
Girl, because the policeman,
bro,
like the blue flag sticker on my shit,
dude,
that literally had me like, oh bitch, like, you going to jail, you're going to jail. What the hell? But
this writing, it talks a lot about the diversing of parties and the way that they approach morality, and I think that this conversation is something that needs to be had so fully today. Don't know if you can tell, but I annotated the absolute filth out of this book. I wrote all over it. I think about it all the time. It's so good. It's just so good. I'm sorry. So, excuse me. That is my second favorite book of our good year 2026. I don't know why I'm like needing an acid. Anyway, my third favorite book of the year is They Can't Kill Us Till They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib. He is a Columbus author. This book was published by Duology Radio, which is in Columbus. If you did not know, I'm currently a Columbus resident, so that already had me teed up. I was very excited to like support the culture that I'm currently living in. But this book, the way I sum it up always is Lucy Dacus on Goodreads has described it as a book that you start reading and you immediately pick up a pen or pencil to underline everything, because it is that important, it is that serious, and I could not agree more. I've been slowly reading this book since the start of the year. It's just something that, like, every essay that he writes, I like truly wanted us to sit and contemplate and like think about, because the way that he intertwines different things, either like something that happened culturally, music, to like all these human life events, which is what a lot of the entertainment that we engage in does naturally, but to see it so plainly written out and described, and specifically through his lens. He describes himself as a poet first, and I think that's just like so paramount throughout the book. There's something that I think authors really, really struggle with sometimes, and that is ending their books, ending their essays, having a good ending that like, I'm like, damn, that was an ending, you know? He does it so well, and I don't know if it's like the poet nature in him. He talks about having experienced loss very early in his child and like his life, and that is something sadly I relate to. And so I don't know if it's like being able to have the foresight that things do end and they can be sad, but they also can bring people together. I don't know, but this man can write the hell out of an ending. It's gonna be weird that I'm gonna relate this to Percy Jackson, but I grew up a very big Percy Jackson girl, if you do not know, and Rick Riordan, one of his big things is like having fun, goofy, silly, whimsical titles that kind of sum up the chapter. And his titles for his essays too is just, you can tell like his craft. There's just sometimes when you read and you're like, this is this person's craft and they do it so well. Do you know what I mean? I do love an essay book, like a book that's made up of a bunch of little essays. I got really into Joan Didion last year. I really do love her and respect her, and I think she does excellent work. Her books, though, like her essays, I don't know how to put into words, honestly. I just don't. Maybe it's because, like, I didn't grow up in California. Like, her lens is not always my lens, so sometimes maybe I just, like, struggle that way. But this, for me, takes the cake for essay books that I've read thus far. I think that I'm also, like, such a lover of a good cover and a good title, and I think this cover is beautiful. I think the title is one of the best titles I've ever read in my life. I think it's so well put. That sums up so much of the book. And I just love when you can tell when an author is being vulnerable and putting pieces of themselves into their story, and they're like a little scared to let it go, but like it is because it's an art, and like they understand the stakes, and it's just, it had me sad. From like page 93 on, I sobbed, so forewarning for that. And pack pencils and lead if you use mechanical, because it is that serious. The next books that I've been obsessed with have been Odyssey retellings. The Odyssey awoken something in me, of course. I have critiques for Mr. Christopher, but it was an excellent film, I thought. Again, I was a Percy Jackson girl first and foremost, so Greek mythology I think is something I've always loved indulging in. I've recently discovered that I think it's because the portrayal of female characters is, they're not always the good guys. They're angry, they can be mean, they can be vengeful, and in many spaces it's like kind of sort of forgiven because they are these ethereal characters, and while they are still punished because that is the female experience, it's different in these Greek story retellings. It is different. And so I reread Circe before the Odyssey came out. I recently lent it to my coworker, so I don't have it to show, but that is one of my favorite books of all time. I think Madeline Miller is doing work not seen anywhere else. She's exceptional. Like, her craft is exceptional. Her cadence, the way that she connects you to character that, like, a lot of times we don't know a lot about. Like, I didn't really know a lot about Circe, to be honest. Because I read Percy Jackson first. I was like, oh, the guinea pig lady, but that is such a small footnote into who she is as a person, a character. And Madeline Miller, again, it's so artful, the way that she writes, and the way everything just seems like it's intended. She just seems like such a person who puts like all of her intention into every sentence, and it means a lot to me, that book. But this book that I'm holding is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker, the first in her 3-book series, I think. I just thrifted her second book, The Woman of Troy, which is about Helen, which I'm extremely sad for. So I'm just waiting for that. But The Silence of the Girls is, I could not put it down. If you're noticing a theme, I saw it on the bus. And it's just, the way that she storytells is so good. I'm honestly like have not been big into first person POV this past 2 years for some reason. But this one was an exception for me. Very much loved the way that our girlie was portrayed and the way that she shared her story. I have lots of thoughts and feelings about a certain plot line that is used oftentimes in female stories to either advance the plot or like kind of like an inherent trauma. I know I'm being vague, but we must, unfortunately. So sorry, not sorry. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings. I think as a society we are very desensitized to violence against women, and I think about it all the time. So reading this in its graphic nature, I was kind of taken aback in some senses because I expected it, didn't expect it. But in reflection, I do think it was necessary. And I think it's well done, because there's some authors who like to go into the graphic nature to describe the pain and suffering in the moment, which I think is, it feels, this is gonna sound so bad, and I'm sorry if this offends, but again, I have lots of thoughts and feelings, but I think it's like kind of like pick me, look at me. And I've recently been in a stage of my life where I'm like, hey, information is good, but my imagination is enough. I do not need to see the visuals. I do not need to see graphics. I think Christopher Nolan actually embodied that in his movie. I'm gonna point a finger at HBO right now. I really, really struggle with a lot of HBO created content because they like, in my opinion, to glorify this topic. And it makes me icky. It makes me feel nauseous inside, so I don't love that. But anyway, The Silence of the Girls, first of all, the title, at one point in the book I was like, oh my gosh, the title. Excellent. And I think the use of girls in particular instead of women was such a great choice. It's just, there's a little bit of like Stockholm syndrome and like their relationship to the men in their individual lives, but also men in the broader sense, and then also men's relationship with women in the broader sense. And I just thought it was excellently done. So I really, really enjoyed. Okay, sorry. Literally rewatching it and had some more thoughts. The first thing that I forgot to add was in addition to being able to be vengeful and angry and stuff, women are also, the Greek mythology, women are also very, very much allowed to play into this aspect of desire and like whether that be like desiring power, desiring intimacy with another individual, just like this aspect of like being hungry. And I think that there's some quote, some poem, there's probably more conversations about this that I have not indulged in, but the aspect of women being able to be hungry, and it's just 4 things, is just something that I think that Greek mythology is allowed to play in a little more than sometimes other books. Also, I forgot to add, and I can't believe it, I'm so angry at myself, is the woman's relationship to one another. I talked about in the broader sense of, but I think one of the most, and I can't believe I forgot to say this, one of the most important things a part of this book, The Silence of the Girls, is the woman's relationship with one another. In this environment where there's a line in the book where she's like, the camp that they're staying at, their base camp, might seem like a small, like, nasty situation to some of these men who have been off fighting, but for the women there, that is their whole world. That is their whole world. And it's gonna be emotional, but there's a lot of subtlety in the way women care for each other, the way women look out for each other, the way women feel connected to one another inherently, despite a bunch of different things, and the way that they stay within one another. The things that you gain from the woman around you, the things that you hold for them, the things that they hold for you. I'm so angry I didn't go into this. So that's the other thing I wanted to add, because I think it's so important. I'm in my car. I'm supposed to go to Giant Eagle right now, but wanted to say that. Yeah, not for the weak of heart at some points, and I'm literally talking about myself. So, but Odyssey retellings, Greek mythology retellings, I think are just, they have me all teed up, you know? And Percy Jackson dropping their trailer during Odyssey week is so funny to me. My take on the Odyssey that you did not ask for, but I want to share, is I thought the Odyssey was great. Sometimes it felt like I was watching like a Trojan War documentary. I was like, is this real footage? Okay, Christopher Nolan, pop off. He is an excellent storyteller. I have like a lot of respect for him in the storytelling aspect. In the portrayal of women's stories, this is a critique that he hears a lot, I think. I actually don't know if he hears, but he sees a lot. There's something about the woman is, which it's like, do I look to a man to tell a woman's story? No, but the undervaluing of the roles, not of the characters in general, but the role women play in his stories, I think is something that I struggle with personally. Circe, like I said, was my girl, and so I was a little disappointed about that scene, even though it's been getting a lot of praise, rightfully so. It's just that he does play into this narrative that women can be dynamic, women can be angry, women can be vengeful, this whole thing. In many ways, he frames it as their key to survival, which is not incorrect by any means, but it very much feels like a woman's story told through a male POV, which, so in some ways I'm grateful he doesn't indulge into that very often, but it also just continuously angers me, because sometimes I'm like, I struggled with Odysseus being like really sorrowful in his story. I thought he should have been a little more prideful in who he was as an individual instead of like regretful. But that's just my own personal view of the Odyssey story. So no hate, no shade. Again, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. So that's just my piece. My favorite book of the year. the long-awaited, my favorite book of the year, which I think is going to be my favorite book of the year. I knew immediately after I was like halfway done, not even halfway, I was like, this is gonna really hit for me. And it's Arundhati Roy's Mother Mary Comes to Me. I think this is one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen. It reflects on the back because this is her memoir, so it's like encapsulated in here is just I think the title is one of the most beautiful titles that I've ever read. I love the red accents. I'm a big fan of a black and white cover for some reason. Big fan of black and white, and I don't know why I'm so drawn to it, but like my favorite Taylor Swift albums are all the black and white ones, to be honest. Like Reputation, Folklore, like it's just, there's something about black and white that does it for me. I don't know, something in my brain. But Arundhati Roy is a Booker Prize winner of her book, The God of Small Things. I've only read a little bit of it, but she is slowly becoming one of my favorite authors of all time. I have recently discovered that I am obsessed with a memoir. I think there's something just about older women reflecting on their lives that I'm so drawn to, as there's so many experiences that are very collective among women, but then there's things that we all go through that you can find bits and pieces to connect with and stuff, but it's a very good reminder that women are not a monolith and all those things, because sometimes I get in the habit of being like, well, all of women, and that's just simply not true. But Arundhati Roy's ability to write a story is I need a better word than excellent. I do. It's, my brain is like, say God tier, so it's God tier. Her reflection of her interpersonal relationships, I thought was so well done. So well done. There's just something about this particular subject matter, mothers, that let's just say I was like to my therapist, please take and read. Yeah, there's that quote that goes around every once in a while that's like, you know, when your father is putting your mother down and you laugh because it can be funny or whatever, but then you look at your mother and you're like, that's my fate, and that's my mother, and like, she is a woman, like at her heart, like she's not just my mother, like. And Arundhati Roy's mom meant a lot to a lot of people, and I think I grew up in a very similar situation. My mom is spectacular. It's so good. I'm like, did she write this for me? Yeah, so I'll tell you a little candid story. My sister like asked my mom the other week, was like, when was the last time you had an hour just to yourself? Because we were like working in the yard, whatever. And she paused. She looked to the sky and she was like, you could tell she thought about it. Like truly, truly in her bones was like, when was the last time? And she was like, I don't know. And that broke my absolute heart. And I think motherhood is so complex and so difficult, and I can't even imagine. There's one quote too that's like, as a daughter, I'm angry, but as a woman, I'm like very empathetic. And yeah, there's just, as we grow more in tune with what feminism is and the roles women play in society, and just the ebbs and flows of girlhood, womanhood throughout time, it's just, this book, I think it's so brilliant to write a memoir, but like kind of like about the relationship with your mother, because I saw another quote, oh my gosh, I'm such a quote girly, on Pinterest that was like, my mother was my first home. She was the first home I returned to. She was my first castle. She was my first country. She was, and I'm gonna like kind of cry thinking about it. But I was really lucky enough to have a mom who stayed home, and she was that, you know, but it's not that easy and simple and cut clear and dry. Like, Arundhati Roy is just, the way that she like writes like a little bit detached, but it's so personal. It seems effortless the way that she tells stories, and I think that I was overtaken. I'm telling you, I did not put this book down. So that's I think this is gonna be her. I think this is her. Maybe a bold statement for only like a little over halfway through the year, but I feel pretty confident that that's gonna stay. Now to finish off our day, I'm gonna be brave and vulnerable and talk a little bit about fanfic, because fanfic is slowly becoming less taboo, which I find so cool and sick. As a longtime fanfic indulger, I think we're asking, and when fanfic gets judged, I've recently realized that I think we're asking the wrong question. Not like, why are people reading fanfic, but why are people drawn to fanfic? And I think for me, a lot of times it is the characterization of the female main characters, specifically in the Hermione realm. I am a Hermione girl. I have been for a little while now. It's just the Hermione writers are doing things that you can't find anywhere else. Yes, there is the underlining relationships, characterization, plots and stuff of the OG books, like completely understand. However, women characters, I think I said this earlier, that like I struggle when it's sword wielding only, or like, and like I don't love teaching how to fight scene. That's not what I'm here for. And so the Hermione world in particular, the way that they write Hermione Granger, and maybe it is because like you underlyingly know that she has friends and is loved and things like this, but I just thought of something else I forgot to say. LOL, sorry. Is that Hermione often has friends, like already established friendships, which is something that I love in books, is the play and relationships between friends. Like, you know, there's always, a lot of times in the romantasy world in particular, there's found family, which your girl, sucker for found family. I love found family. But the established friendships is not something that a lot of female main characters have. Oftentimes it comes from the male main character, which is so interesting actually, and now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, like I don't know if it's the fact that with the OG books or something that the authors do play into a lot is this already established friendship. I personally want to see more already established friendships and already established, well, like natural, like sibling relationships. I think that needs to pick up a little bit. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Something that fanfic is very, very good at is this friendship dynamic, sibling dynamic, those kind of human experience relationships that, yeah, I don't know. I can't even think right now. I'm so hungry, so sorry, but that's what I wanted to add. She, in the OG books, goes through kind of a freaking ton, you know? And the way authors expand on that or like establish that is just, it's so excellent. There's not a lot of female main characters that openly make people upset and then like have resolution in the storyline, you know. And I also wanted to add something, that the reason that I'm also drawn to like the characterization of Hermione and like the way authors portray her and write her is because she's like slightly intellectually insecure, but where you like have your worth so much established and like what you can provide, very woman experience, and to see that challenged and played with, especially at the hands of like a competent male, is just, it has me teed up every time. There's this dialogue that I'm very interested in, two actually, that why not put everything in this video, is one, it always comes back to Percy Jackson, but the like erasure of the tomboy. Actually, I'm not gonna go into that right now. That's a topic that I'm very interested in. But the fact that a lot of the women girlies that we grew up with in these stories, their skill, their add to the group, their necessity was their intelligence, and how it shaped and impacted a bunch of girls. I think is a very interesting conversation that I want to delve into more. But to see authors use that dynamic and play with it in the plot and in Hermione's inner dialogue, I find very, very special. So that's another reason why I'm really, really drawn to Hermione in particular. Anyway. an example that I always come back to of like a dynamic female main character is my girl Nesta. I'm very, very protective of her, so be aware. The Jasad Heir situation is a very similar, accomplishes similar things. But there's a reason I come back to fanfic. There just is, and I think it is the characterization of the girly that is sharing her story. I think I also said that I struggle reading male POVs. I do not care what's going on in their brain. I think it actually takes away from a story. I think this is so mean and I'm so sorry. I think it's a cheap way to show a growing connection in a relationship. I think the Jasad Heir is an exception. I think that is a complete exception. I think the Six of Crows is an exception. The Rule of Wolves, King of Scars is an exception. Like, those are untrue. That statement is untrue for those books, but I think that, I'm not gonna say the book title, but there's one that, like, it's a dual POV, and I think that it's kind of a cop-out to show that a relationship is growing by showing his inner dialogue. It's just not what I'm there for. So I actually don't read a lot of fanfic that is dual POV, to be honest. If you have recs that are solely girly POVs, let me know. Like, truthfully, being so serious. But my two favorite fanfics. So I'll start off with my favorite fanfic of all time, which I loved Manacled, I did. But my favorite fanfic is Greenlight. I think Greenlight is... I'm gonna cry thinking about it right now. I'm like, it makes me that emotional. I like can't even go into it fully without thinking about, I need to like truly sort out my thoughts to go into that, but that book, so I read that last year and it changed the course of, altered the course of my brain, changed the course of my life, whatever, the whole thing's, me being shy about it, but it did. And I've been like trying to fill that gap ever since. So the two books that I've read this year that have reached God tier status for me are The Fallout by Everythursday, I believe. Don't quote me, my gosh. Anyway, The Fallout is so good. It goes into this thing, it's Hermione's POV. The way that she tells her story is so good. Someone said this in a Christopher Nolan interview that was like, you use time as a character. Time is very much a present character in a lot of the work that you do. And I think that is true. But I also think that is very present in the story of The Fallout, that time is a character. And I'm drawn to that. I really am drawn to that. I think it's so interesting as someone who like I'm personally get like fearful of time, the passage of time for some reason. Well, hey. But this time being like this third character is just, I think it's so well done in The Fallout in particular. I'm very drawn to a wartime Hermione, sue me, sue me. And it's just, I also struggle too in books when the main couple is like the leader. I don't hate it, obviously, I indulge, and I think they're fire, but there's something about reading a book where the main two, or our main girly, is kind of like a side leader. Alchemized is a very primary example of traditionally published books, but The Fallout, I found myself being like, is this my inner dialogue? It had me so extremely sad, because I was like, should I be taking notes right now? Like, what is happening? It just, the way that this author portrayed what I think is like social anxiety, like a little bit of OCD and all this stuff through the inner dialogue without ever like giving it shape by describing it bluntly, because it is a fantasy realm, it is fanfic, was just fantastic. I had such a good time and I miss her every day. I wish I could read her again for the first time. But the one that takes the cake for me this year is Love in a Time of a Zombie Apocalypse. Love in a Time of a Zombie Apocalypse, I recently found out, influenced a lot of the fave fanfics. Manacled, I found out, and I think Secrets of Masks, I don't know. But that story, there's something about a good plot that's like I didn't know I needed a zombie apocalypse plotline, but I did, and I adored it, and I devoured it. And I'll give you a line from the book that I just saw the other day that was like when they're about to be like caught, and she's like about to be taken, and she knows that she has to leave, and she goes, "You have to let me go," and he goes, "I cannot." It is that serious. Unfortunately, it is that serious. Trust, it is. It's just, there's something too about conflict resolution where in a relationship that's not miscommunication that I'm really drawn to. I'm very drawn to competent males. If a man says competent, I will ride and die for you. I will. You will rise on my book boyfriend list hard, and that's something also Hermione writers often do well, is a competent male. Something I also really enjoy is when, I think this is a weakness in enemies to lovers that happens, is they're enemies. They start out as enemies, and the minute they become lovers, it's like any quarreling is like not seen anymore, or it's very quickly resolved. There's like no challenging that happens again. I'm thinking primarily of Reese and Farah and Akhtar, which is not hate on Akhtar. I love Akhtar, don't get me wrong, but there's something about in Hermione in particular that where the male, I keep saying the male because I'm like shy, where Draco continues to challenge Hermione like consistently throughout the book, and it's not in an absence of care and love and whatever. It is simply because like he knows her, that she likes to be challenged, and he's not gonna like sacrifice himself for a relationship that, you know. And so I think that's also something that I love, and something that happens in the Love and Time of Zombie Apocalypse is that like he's very truthful and he challenges her, and I'm obsessed with that, and I eat it up. I would Zamboni it off the ground. It's so good. So I'm very tired on this Monday after work. I am. But hey, these are my favorite books thus far in our year of 2026. How do you like all that background static noise? These are my angels. These are my babies, and I recommend them all. So even though I found out I think I give bad book recommendations, as every of my inner close friends give book recommendations, sometimes they don't finish. So I'm like, okay. But I'm someone who likes escapism a lot, so take that with maybe your baseline, that's usually what I'm looking for, is some sort of world to delve into, as to kind of get a little breather from this one. So did not love that I did that.